Hey there! Are you interested in getting access to the recordings of my monthly masterclass hangouts, where we do deep dives into different travel hacking programs? If so, please check out the Patreon at patreon.com/geobreezetravel. Patreon members will also get to vote on the charity of the month, because in case you didn't already know, all of the Geobreeze travel income gets earmarked for donations to different nonprofits. That includes the income from the monthly hangouts, coaching services, and credit card affiliate signups. Links to all of those are available in the show notes. This week's Patreon shoutout goes out to Lindsay. Thank you so much for being a part of the Geobreeze Travel Patreon community. Welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast, a show for anyone wanting to level up their travel hacking lifestyle. I'm your host, Julia Menez. I'm a travel hacker, coach, speaker, Filipina-American ENTJ who loves solid travel gear and using shortcuts on spreadsheets. On this show, I'm on a mission to bring you travel hackers from all walks of life to help you level up your travel hacking game. We dive into credit cards, miles, points, strategy, mindset, and the secrets behind how to travel the world for next to no cost. So, let's get hacking.
It's just crazy how customer focused they are, because most people, when they think about airlines, again, in the US, outside of the US, I feel like airlines care a little bit more about their customers. But, if you fly American or United regularly, you're like, oh, well, I hope they don't take advantage of me too much today. It's a negative experience. If you have problems, no one's going to help you. But with Southwest, not only do they have fantastic prices if you know how to find them and take advantage of them, but when you have a problem with Southwest, they instant credit, instant money. I was flying on points all through 2018 and 2019. 2 hours, 3 hours delayed. And I would get $100, $150, $200 travel vouchers for flights that I booked with points for less than 5,000 points one way, which is just crazy. They really care about the customers. And there's, again, a lot of loopholes in their system.
Hello, travel hackers. You just heard a clip from Matt from SWA Travel Tips. His page specializes in all things Southwest Airlines and teaches people little-known secrets to maximize flying Southwest. In today's episode, Matt and I discuss different tricks to flying on Southwest Airlines and also a commentary about how far people are willing to go to get points and when the effort, honestly, may not be worth it. Remember, it's just as important to value your time as much as you value the money that you are saving with all of these different travel tricks. If you are looking to save yourself a lot of research time, I offer free 30-minute coaching calls to help point you in the right direction with how to get the travel that you want for free. Slots fill up fast, and there's normally at least a couple of weeks waiting period. You can grab a slot using the links in the show notes below. And now, on with the show. Hey, Matt, welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, we are so excited to have you here and learn all of your different tricks for Southwest Airlines and all of the other travel hacks you have. But before we jump into those, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Matt. I'm one of the very few travel hacking Matts out there. And, I love flying Southwest Airlines. I love flying other carriers too, internationally. But the reason I focus on Southwest Airlines is because I think there's a lot of value that many people gloss over or they may not be aware about. And I just want to share that with the whole community.
Nice. So how did you get started with travel hacking once upon a time ago?
Oh, so it's funny because I knew years ago that the Chase Sapphire Preferred was the absolute best credit card. I just didn't have any credit cards, but I knew that when I finally was going to sign up for a credit card, it was going to be the Chase Sapphire Preferred. I think that card came out in 2009. So around 2010 plus, for years and years, I'm eventually going to get a credit card and it's going to be the Chase Sapphire Preferred. And I didn't do anything. I always used a debit card and that worked out fine most of the time. And it wasn't until that I was supposed to go to Cancun. I was actually supposed to go to Playa del Carmen with some friends for their 10-year vow renewal ceremony. And there was an all-in-one sort of travel package that I was planning on booking. And in the time that it took me to transfer the funds from one bank account to another, because again, debit cards aren't very secure, so you can't keep all your money in that account. So in the 3 business days that it takes to transfer between accounts, the price of that package went up over $500. And at that point, I'm like, I know what cards I should be getting. I've already done the research on it. I got to get a credit card. So I went out and I got a secured credit card. And, since then, I've been adding credit cards ever since. I think I got around 25 right now that I'm actively holding. And it's a lot of fun. And hopefully, it's all worth it.
What was the mindset block that was stopping you from getting credit cards before?
I think I grew up, I don't want to say paranoid, but I grew up a little paranoid. And part of it is that, financial institutions, big tech companies, they build profiles regarding your spending habits, where you live, what you like to do, your consumer profile, marketing to you. And because, spoiler, I work in tech. So I'm very cautious of that. And I kept my digital footprint as well as my just financial footprint as small as possible. So paying cash, not even using debit transactions. But it got to a point where the opportunity cost of not taking advantage of, these little wins and the inconveniences of just not using credit, like I mentioned in that story, and I've got other ones definitely in the same situation, that it's like you need to get over yourself. And it came down to, a friend of mine once told me that paranoia is just another form of narcissism. And I was like, whoa, if that's true, then am I a narcissist? And I don't want to be a narcissist. So that kind of helped me put a little bit in perspective. But we should be careful about data and who's using it. So I'm just going to put that out there.
So when you first got into travel hacking, you said your first card was a secure card, and then you jumped straight into Chase Sapphire Preferred. After that, there's always like one of two camps after that. Still staying paranoid, like slowly going to the water, or jumping all in, getting like 12 credit cards your first year?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of hard to remember because it's been a few years. I certainly picked up a good amount of cards. I had a good run. I haven't really stopped. And as long as you play the game well, I don't think a lot of people need to get into the nitty gritty of hacking and stacking, because I think that's overkill. But if you have a system or a plan that you say, okay, maybe once a quarter, I'm going to get a new card. If you're playing with two players, you or your partner once a quarter get a new card. 4 cards a year is a pretty good clip that I think a lot of people, if they're deliberate, could meet the minimum spend requirements on, and could net you, depending on the offers, several 100,000 points a year. And I think that doesn't require a lot of effort, and that's a good place for you to sort of start. Again, you never know with these offers. Okay, well, if there's a Chase Sapphire Preferred is 80K, does that mean they're going to do something for the reserve? I mean, surely they have to do something for the reserve. And again, as we're recording, they haven't done anything for the reserve yet. So hopefully they do. But it was just too good to pass up in that instance. But I think that raises a good point, because there's a fear, at least I had this fear, that just because you're approved for the card doesn't mean that you're eligible for the sign-up bonus. So they very easily could have given me the card, and by their accounting, I may not have been eligible. So I would have burned one of the 524 slots that you mentioned earlier, and I would have kind of come away with nothing.
What is your favorite way to verify and double check that you are eligible for the bonus before applying?
Okay, so I certainly called Chase and I talked to them. And quick tip, if you're going to call a bank, I wouldn't come straight out and be like, hey, I really love only to get this for the bonus. I think you should be a little bit more confused. Whenever I call a bank, I'm confused. I often may know more than the agent I'm talking to about what's going on, but I'm always like, hey, I heard about this offer that's going on. Can you tell me about that? So I definitely called Chase. I called them a few times and I got some different answers. But when it came down to it, because I had product changed my original Chase Sapphire, I had kept the account, because you never want to cancel, you just want to downgrade. So I downgraded originally to a Chase Freedom Unlimited. So I still had the original PDF documents for the statements, which Chase keeps for 7 years. And I went back and I looked at my old billing statements to see what month I actually earned the points. And I verified in the terms of service that the 48-month counts on the statement close date. So my statement closed on October 8th. I knew it was October 8th, and October 9th rolled around. I crossed my fingers and I applied and I got it. Most people feel that you should wait at least a whole other statement close date before applying. But again, I was down to the wire. So I rolled the dice.
Nice. And you have verified that you're eligible?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, the first thing I did was go online. And what's nice, in the past year, maybe a little bit longer, Chase has added the bonus tracker to all of their cards, so you can see how far along you are and you can see the offer that you have. And some Amex cards have that now as well, but it doesn't seem on all of them.
Interesting. So you got that Chase Sapphire Preferred, the new one, a lot of business cards, but the business cards from Chase are subject to 524. So are you getting mostly Amex Citi?
The business card. So I'm actually under 524. I work hard to stay under 524. As you mentioned, the business cards are subject to 524, but only for approval. They just pass right through. So I think I'm at 424 right now. I have to go back and double check. I'm either 424 or 324. One of them is about to drop off. So I always try to stay at around 424. But if I do exceed it, if an offer is too good that I will exceed it, then if I did hit 524, then I would just go crazy. I would try to get as many cards as possible while I'm at 524 with the other banks, because again, those will age out over time.
So you go over what we call LOL over 24. And then if you're over 524, just go like 15 over 24 if you can sustainably meet all of these minimum spends and you're not going to go into debt and it's still a financially viable solution for you. And then once that 24 hits, you're suddenly back down to 1 or 2, depending on when your cutoff date is. So, all right. And so you niched down pretty hard with Southwest. Why Southwest?
I think Southwest, there's a few reasons. I mean, there's the content creator side where I'm like, oh, Southwest makes total sense. They have a strong brand. They have great service. They're well loved. I mean, well, you either love Southwest or you hate Southwest. I don't think I've ever met anyone that's like, Southwest, I like them-ish. They have very strong polarity as a brand. So that's one reason. But the other reason I think is bigger is that Southwest has a lot of loopholes. They're probably the best domestic carrier for just crazy shenanigans that you can do with Southwest to fly for like practically nothing. And we talk about flying for nothing because it's points and miles. It's not real money. But I mean, nothing points and miles, like less than 6K round trip across the entire United States. Boy. And it's just crazy how customer focused they are, because most people, when they think about airlines, again, in the US, outside of the US, I feel like airlines care a little bit more about their customers. But, like if you fly American or United regularly, you're like, oh, well, I hope they don't take advantage of me too much today. It's a negative experience. If you have problems, no one's going to help you. But with Southwest, not only do they have fantastic prices if you know how to find them and take advantage of them, but when you have a problem with Southwest, like instant credit, instant money. I was flying on points all through 2018 and 2019. 2 hours, 3 hours delayed. And I would get $100, $150, $200 travel vouchers for flights that I booked with points for less than like 5,000 points one way, which is just crazy. They really care about the customers. And there's, again, a lot of loopholes in their system.
So one of the most common ways that people get these prices down so much is by, even when you've already booked a ticket, you keep watching the price. And then if it goes down, you can rebook your ticket, you can cancel it, rebook, or do some kind of price matching in order to get a little bit refunded back into your account. Is that how that?
Yeah, that is correct. So they have what they call their transparency. They're very clever with names. So the transparency program is exactly like how you described, that at any time, if you notice that there is a price drop, you can go and basically match that price. Most of the time you can do it online or in the app. Occasionally, the reservation kind of might be locked out. You'll have to call Southwest, which is super easy to do. You can usually get on the phone in about 5 minutes and they'll price match. Now, it used to be Southwest was the only carrier that allowed free award changes in the United States without some very high level status. Since coronavirus, a lot of the carriers have allowed free award changes as well as free flight changes, but those are subject to price increases. And that's the same thing on Southwest as well. It's always subject to price increases. The difference is that it's also subject to price decreases, which is exactly what you mentioned. So, if I have a flight that's 9,000 points, or let's say $250, it drops down to $200. I can either get that, $50 refunded to me as a travel fund, is what Southwest calls it. And basically what that means is it's a voucher that's good from 1 year of the original reservation date. Or if I use points, which is preferably you're booking with points because there is no expiration date, those point difference would be refunded into your account. And of course, with points, you can use those to book for any passenger. Travel funds are locked in to the original passenger on the ticket.
I see. And with all of these different loopholes that Southwest has, as a hacker, How long-term sustainable do you think a lot of these loopholes are? Do they disappear really quickly? If we were looking like a year, 2 years, 5 years out into the world of hacking, are these hacks still going to be around?
I think so. In that some of the loopholes that Southwest has are built into their system. So, for instance, the transparency, that is one of their main tenets and marketing structures that's fundamental to Southwest as a business. 2 bags flying for free for every passenger. Again, it's one of their marketing tactics. It can be very valuable, as well as co-terminals, which is something that we can get into. Now, there are some things right now that are hacks that probably aren't going to be around forever. This, for instance, this one's a bit difficult to describe, but because of the 737 MAX grounding that happened in March of 2019, Southwest allowed all passengers to change their reservation if they had a flight on the 737 MAX within a 14-day window. And what that allows you to do in the Southwest booking system, it means that you can book the lowest cost flight in a 14-day window, at the time, a 14-day window, and then move it to the actual flight you want to take. So for instance, as an example, people classically say flights are cheaper on a Tuesday. You book a Tuesday, which is maybe the cheapest flight that you want to do. And then really you want to fly on a Saturday, which might be twice as much. You could save hundreds of dollars. In the example, it's $600 on a flight or thousands of points where you book the lowest cost ticket and then you can change it for free to the itinerary that you actually want. The only stipulations, it has to be the same source and destination. And even then it doesn't really have to, depending on where you're going, because Southwest has this crazy thing, which they call co-terminals. So co-terminals, when an airline has an extended footprint at a nearby airport, they call them co-terminals. So a great example for Southwest is that in Mexico, they have Cancun and Cozumel. In Los Angeles, they have Long Beach. They have LAX. They have, what are the other ones? Burbank. They have 5 in the greater Los Angeles area. And what that means is that you can book a flight to any one of those. And when this is going on, which it comes and goes, you could change, let's say I'm booking from Phoenix to LAX. Boy, I really want to fly to Phoenix to Long Beach. I could change my flight from Phoenix to LAX to Phoenix to Long Beach and save potentially hundreds of dollars because Long Beach is a little bit smaller airport. Maybe I booked it at a different time. And you can do that as many times as the window is open. So the change window comes and goes. But since coronavirus, because they've been changing their schedule so often, and again, these are schedule-wide, like Britain, these are schedule-wide changes that affects their entire schedule. And when this happens, you don't have to have an existing flight. You can go and make a new booking, and then immediately after making that booking, change it to the day that you actually want to fly.
That's a crazy hack. I've never heard of that before. And this only happens when there's a system-wide schedule change?
Yeah, so it happens pretty regularly when they update their schedule. And with coronavirus, it's basically like, okay, I can no longer fly to the Bahamas. The entire schedule is open. So it's something like that. It originally started with the 737 MAX in March 2019. I post about whenever the schedule is open. I say like, hey, you can now go change your flights for free. It's a little bit complex, and I know I may not have described it as clearly. So check out my Instagram. I'm going to go over this in detail. And for instance, today, when we were recording, the 737 MAX had been cleared by the FAA to fly again. Southwest is going to start flying it in Q2 of 2021. So if that were to return to service, that'd be one avenue in which this loophole is closed. And eventually when coronavirus is manageable, this probably won't be as good opportunity. But even before all of this, a few times when Southwest adjusted schedule massively, there will be these limited change windows. Traditionally, it was 14 days, and that's forward or backwards. Right now, it's 30 days, and that's because of coronavirus. So as an example, I book my Thanksgiving flights. I am traveling for Thanksgiving to visit family, and normally that flight would probably be, and I booked on points, normally that flight would be about 13,000, 12,000 points. And because of being able to pick any day within basically a 60-day window for the absolute cheapest price and then move it to the day I actually want, I booked those tickets for 5,400 points. Yeah. And that's one of the things, and this is just the tip of the Southwest iceberg, just the tip of it.
That's absolutely insane. There's so many different things that you can do with Southwest. And so you focus a lot on the redemption side and redemption hacks. Do you also focus just as much on the earnings of the Southwest?
I do. For most people that have been involved in travel hacking, the Southwest Companion Pass is a pretty coveted and I'd say standard redemption that people are going for. It's earning 125,000 points in one calendar year, and it's a very important calendar year starting January 1st, ending December 31st. All the points have to be earned in order to earn Companion Pass. Now, in 2020, because of coronavirus, they basically gave everyone 25,000 points credit to their account. Points that couldn't be used for flight redemptions, but would count towards Companion Pass. The other way to earn Companion Pass is to fly 100 unique one-way segments. For the frequent flyers on Southwest, that's certainly possible, but it's much easier to earn those points just through credit card spend is the easiest way by signing up for a business account. You could do 2 business credit cards. You could do 1 business, 1 personal. It used to be until 2018 that you could sign up for multiple personal accounts and earn the sign-up bonus, but that's no longer the case because, the game changes and avenues that once were available no longer are. But it's still quite easy to do. You can still earn the points for the sign-up bonuses, like I mentioned, and often you can get around 100,000, maybe 115,000 just from 2 credit card sign-up bonuses, depending on the promotion. But they also have a shopping portal. They also have dining credits, and there's a few other things that you can do, particularly there's some really great point arbitrage you can do with hotel stays through the Southwest Hotel Bonus Portal.
So to review all of that, 2 sign-up bonuses: get a business credit card through Southwest and a personal credit card through Southwest. Use their dining portal, use their shopping portal, and use Southwest Vacations for different hotels. And those things will probably...
Yeah, there's most of the time, as an example, there's a Southwest, I believe it's I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it's the performance business card. It's a $199 annual fee credit card, but that sign-up bonus is 100K points. And, that's 4/5 of the way there for what you need with 1 credit card. So there's a lot of things you can do. Again, I cover how to earn Companion Pass in different scenarios. Many people that fly Southwest are families because Southwest has some pretty generous benefits for families. As an example, if you're not familiar with Southwest, Southwest doesn't have assigned seating. You are given a number in which to board the plane based on when you check in, starting at the 24-hour mark. And you're sorted into 3 different groups, A, B, and C. And that's A 1 through 60, and then B 1 through 60, and so on for C. But what a lot of people enjoy for Southwest, for families, is that at the end of group A, if you have young children, and I don't recall the age off the top of my head since I do not have any children, but it's within a reasonable age. I think it's under the age of 8 or 10. You can then board at the end of A, and that way you can find seats together as a family. So a lot of people don't just have 1 companion pass, they have 2 companion pass if they have, if they're like a standard American family with 2.5 children or whatever that number is, 1.7. Both parents are going to have the companion pass, and then they'll also have an additional... They'll designate one of the children as a companion. So, you can be flying multiple people for the cost of just a few tickets.
Yeah, because the Companion Pass gets you buy one, get one free. And what's the ideal time?
The ideal timing, it depends on how diligent you are with your credit card spend and how diligent you are with tracking. A lot of people recommend signing up for the bonuses either the end of October, beginning of November, and then timing spend to not hit until January, because if you receive the full bonuses in January, that would give you all of that year and the following year. So as an example, let's say if you signed up in October, you received it in January, you get all of 2021 and 2022. But, if you signed up in, let's say, January, you didn't receive it until June, then you only get half the year, so about a year and a half. So if you time it right, it's 2 years. But it's really, really important to remember that the points count in the year that they post. So I actually don't recommend October for most people, just because if you're kind of new to the game and you're not super diligent about tracking every spend, it's very easy. And there's a lot of sad stories that you can read online for people that earned the bonus in December. So I would recommend at the earliest, probably signing up at the end of November, but preparing at the end of the year and knowing what large expenses you have and front loading those as much as possible. For instance, if you pay insurance, if you have a car, if you drive often, you can actually change the date at which you maybe are being billed for your insurance, changing the date for a lot of things maybe move from a month to month to an annual program on a certain day, prepay in advance for a lot of utilities. So you're missing out a little bit of spend for the end of the year, especially, with the holidays in North America, but the risk of making a mistake is certainly lower. And again, I would just hate for anyone to, sign up for a card and have the points post before the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure. Because the way this works is once you've hit your companion pass mark, you get the rest of that calendar year and the entire next year. So if you hit all of your companion pass points, like you hit that 125,000 on December 27, congratulations, you've got about 4 days of companion pass this year and all of next year. Where if you were to hit it on January 10 of the following year, you have January 11 through December 31st and the entire year after that. So you can effectively get nearly 2 years of buy one, get one.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And and what's really sad about that is most often people hit one sign up bonus in 1 year and one in the other. So it's even worse. They don't even earn it for the year and they're just stuck in this limbo in between. And then they have to figure out how am I going to get 80,000. I think so much of the game of travel hacking goes back to the basics of good personal finance habits and not overextending what you're spending and understanding that you're doing things through a system deliberately. You're not doing things because something's new and shiny. Just because something looks like a good deal doesn't mean it is a good deal, especially if it doesn't fit into your overall goals.
Thank you so much for saying that, because it is so important to strategically plan and not just chase down shiny offers. And Southwest Companion Pass is one of those places that really, really rewards you for diligent planning and diligent tracking, and results in a very, very sad story if you do not time it right, as Matt just said. So let's talk a little bit more about the financial habits, the sustainability of this all, the not driving yourself crazy, because you sound like you just read terms and conditions of Southwest websites a lot. How does somebody who doesn't love reading terms and conditions make this a sustainable thing to keep track of all of the different information, not drive themselves crazy, not inflate their budget, being like, oh, I got to get like on that Southwest shopping portal, eat all of the dining things, get dining credits, get points. And then suddenly you've gained 50 pounds, you spent $50,000 that wasn't in your budget. None of that's sustainable. So
yeah, I think,
sustainably.
There's a reason Dave Ramsey is the most popular financial speaker in the United States, because a lot of people have credit card debt and a lot of people have abused credit because banks have made it very easy. I do think the responsibility is on the banks, but it's something that you need to recognize in that everything is all about the foundations. I really believe as I've gotten older that anything that you do is returning to the basics and doing the basics very well. So it's something that you don't see very often in the travel hacking or blogger space because, frankly, most travel hacking and bloggers earn a lot of revenue through credit card affiliate signups. I mean, I have credit card affiliate signups. You do too, Julia. And that's great. We love, getting a little kickback for the work that we do. But when you go really big, you don't spend a lot of time on financial literacy. You spend a lot of time pushing great offers. And number one, if you have any debt, you shouldn't be doing this, like pay off your debt, make sure that you're spending your money responsibly. You're keeping to your budget. I want to do a shout out for Meet Sethi, his book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. If you need anything, check that book out. I think it's the best financial book, number one, most gifted book that I've personally given away. And I think they'll put you on a good path to success. So if you don't have debt, if you have healthy money habits, if you're saving money, if you're investing in your retirement, if you're doing all those things, then sure, you can then move on to credit cards. And I know that sounds like a barrier and it sounds like, oh, I want to get to this fun, crunchy, juicy stuff right now. Credit cards, great. Applying for quote unquote free. But it's really not even needed because you don't actually need credit cards to do good travel hacking. There's, Scott's Cheap Flights, which has a free newsletter, which will send you really cheap flight deals, Dollar Flight Clubs, secrettravel.com. These are all websites where you can find round trip flights to Europe for $400, $500, where you can still do a lot of good travel hacking without credit cards and without the danger of getting credit cards. Because we have to remember the only reason that these banks give great sign-up bonuses is because they have huge interest rates and they know that most people are going to be carrying a balance and they're going to be earning a lot of money off of them. But going back to your question, how do you manage this? I think it's being realistic on what you can afford, what your spending looks like. What do you spend in a year? How much time are you willing to put into this? And what's the easiest and simplest thing that you can sustain over time? And that might mean 2 credit cards. One credit card where I'm going to get a bonus maybe on travel and restaurants, and then another that I'm going to put everything else on. Or that might mean, okay, I can get 2 new credit cards a year and I can still earn a few 100,000 points from those 2 new credit cards a year. And that's all I'm going to do.
Such great advice about being realistic with what you can afford, and not just from what can you afford to put on a credit card and pay off each month, which is one of the tenets of travel hacking, but also what can you afford as far as time to devote to this hobby? Because if you're okay, I have no budget pretty much, but I heard about manufactured spending, so I'm going to spend 50 hours a week collecting different ways to manufacture spend, and that's all you're doing with your time, and you hate it, then it's not a sustainable hobby. Yeah, it might be sustainable financially, but you are going to burn out. So know your limits, not just from a financial credit limit standpoint and budget standpoint, but know your limits from how much time can you really afford to do this, and how much interest do you have in the hobby? Is this something that you want to do? Oh yeah, I'll just do a little bit here or there. Or no judgment if you are one of those people who are I am going to dive so deep. I am fascinated by all of this. I want to keep just doing more and more and more. Cool. But if that's not you, if you're listening to Matt read off from memory terms and conditions of Southwest, and you're dear God, no, I don't want that life, then don't do that.
Yeah, just keep it simple. Follow my Instagram. You get all the information you need. Just subscribe to all my stuff. I'm gonna do the work for you. But as you mentioned, if you're not interested in the credit cards, but if you are, certainly sign up through Geobreeze Travel. You got to do that. But if you're not interested in credit cards, there's still a lot of things that you can do to travel hack. And if you are interested in credit cards and you want to get down and dirty into the weeds, then I'd also say you probably shouldn't. Frankly, I don't think most people should be into travel hacking in the way that maybe you and I are, because it's a hobby and it's a game. And by that means it's inherently doesn't have a lot of financial reward, because you're either doing this for profit or you're doing it for fun. And rarely are you doing it for both. And you need to recognize what you're getting out of it, because you can spend, as you mentioned, 50 hours a week manufacturing spending. And that 50 hours might actually be closer to 80 hours or 70 hours, depending on how much mental space it's taking, depending on if you're going to stores to liquidate, depending on how much tracking you're doing. And it turns out that maybe your return on that time is very low. It could be time that you could have spent with your family, or learning a new skill, or negotiating your salary for a raise. There is a real cost to this. And you have to decide if you're doing this for the thrill of the game or if you're doing this for profit. And if you're doing this for profit, you probably should really scale back how much time you're putting into this and just stick with the basics. We call this the game or the hobby. We don't call this the second job. And you need to remember that, again, it's a lot of time, and time has a real value assignment to it. You need to figure out what your time is worth and how much you're willing to spend on it. But I'm also really glad that you mentioned Tim Ferriss, because he had a podcast sometime recently. He does podcasts, he's got a lot of episodes. We had Seth Godin on, who I really love Seth Godin's work. If you're not familiar with Seth Godin, again, I'm going to give another shout out, follow his work. And he mentioned when he was working with Seth Godin that, you do the work and you do it consistently, and you go in and you decide what's generous and what's creative. And that's really your best work. And everything else is sort of drudge work. And you need to be willing to put the time in to where you find the value.
Tim Ferriss has also had many episodes talking about the 80-20 rule and how to focus on the big wins, the 20% of things that gets you 80% of the return. For travel hacking, that's going to be your sign-up bonuses.
I agree. It's definitely the sign-up bonuses. The other thing that would be if you have a few cards, just putting the right spend on the right card. If you're in 2-player mode, which basically means that you and a partner are working together to get credit card points. One of you is probably more into it than the other, and just making it really simple, where it's hey, for groceries, use this card. For everything else, use this one. Just really simplifying it down, like we mentioned. And the other thing would just be, again, the biggest thing, not stressing. So I'd say another part of the 80-20 rule is maybe turning off notifications for some of the bloggers and, Instagrammers, maybe getting a weekly newsletter instead of a daily newsletter, because if you allow yourself to be sucked into it, it's like the news. It's a cycle, and it exists because it's exciting. And if you really want to live that 80-20 lifestyle, you need to tune out a little bit of the excitement, which means that, yes, you won't be able to get your Domino's pizza that you may or may not want, but it means you're going to be able to get, a $100,000 offer when you're ready for that on your plan. Because in June, you can now sign up for a new credit card because that's what you plan. When you get into manufacturer spending or maybe buying groups, you seem to somehow magically forget that you don't buy things that you can't afford to spend. And with those systems, you're literally buying things that you can't afford to spend in the hope that you're kind of leveraging the money that you're spending to more points. But when that goes wrong, it goes very wrong. So just don't do it. And I'm so passionate about this because I was talking to some folks at a local meetup that I run a few months ago, back before, coronavirus. And we were talking credit card hacking, and I was really excited. And this person's like, yeah, I've got this so-and-so, I've done that so-and-so redemption and points and miles. And then they mentioned that they carry a balance on one of their cards. And I'm like, and I don't mean like a really cool 0 interest percent, like no fee, and they're using leverage in order to earn back when the interest rate was like 2% and they're just like holding it for 3-4 months. I mean, like they're carrying a balance on their card. If you carry a balance, you've basically negated all a year's worth, maybe even 2 years worth of credit card hacking. And yet people do it. They're like, oh, I got $1,000 worth of value by signing up for this card, but then I'm just going to keep a few $100 in balance. It's going to disappear in months. I think my one-liner would be optimized doesn't mean efficient. And again, if you hate what I've said, if you're a content creator and you listen to this and you're like, you know what? Well, that's a bummer because I'm telling myself this first and foremost. It's not to diss anyone out there because I've got Instagram friends that really post about all these little tiny save 1% and then stack it with this 2%, and they're saving 6 cents on a transaction, and at scale, that adds up. And it does. But I would say at what cost? So I have to remind myself not to get into the weeds on these things because I need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And I just think there needs to be one person in the corner saying, maybe not. And I'll be that person.
Thank you for fighting the good fight.
But I definitely want to give a shout out to Frequent Miler, who is a little bit bigger in this space, but they talk a lot about manufacturer spending if you want to get into it. And they're just super helpful. If you ever have a question, definitely reach out to them. You always follow me on Instagram. That's SWA Travel Tips. I also have a private Facebook group, and you can sign up for a newsletter where I'm going to be sharing some of the things similar to what we talked about, but a little bit maybe more secret at insiders.swatraveltips.com, where we talk about things that we don't want people to get mad at us about talking about publicly. So, and by people, I mean, again, airlines and banks. So it's a lot of fun. You can always reach out to me. Always happy to chat about anything. I'm relatively active on Instagram. I don't post often, but I do read every message. And you can also email me if you want. That's swatraveltips@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. If any of the cards mentioned in today's episode piqued your interest, please check out the links in the show notes for more information on any of the cards. Also, if you apply for a card using the links on that page, I may receive a commission too, so please and thank you. P.S. I hear the links work better in Internet Explorer or Safari, and sometimes the credit card applications tend to glitch out in Chrome. Additionally, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to this podcast, leave a 5-star review, and share it with a friend. And if you would like to make even more travel hacking friends, please sign up for the Patreon to access our monthly masterclass hangouts. We dive deep into a particular points program each month, and you'll get to ask all of your travel hacking questions and enjoy being around other people who enjoy points and miles just as much as you and I do. If you would like an invite to the next one, head over to geobreezetravel.com/hangouts to sign up to be on the invite list. Take care and happy travels!